The eye of the mountain. The biting wind whipped at Gareth's threadbare cloak as he stared up at the monolith. It was a jagged tooth of obsidian against the bruised twilight sky. Impossibly tall, impossibly menacing. He'd been tracking it for days, driven by a desperate hope and a gnawing fear he couldn't quite place. Locals called it the Devil's Peak, whispering fearful tales of disappearances and unholy rituals performed beneath its shadow. Gareth hadn't believed them. Not at first. He was a man of logic, of maps and measurements. But the desperation to find his sister, Ilara, missing now for 3 weeks, had led him to this desolate place, to a mountain that seemed to hum with a dark sentience. As he drew closer, the air grew heavy, charged with a static that made the hairs on his arms stand on end. The ground was barren, the trees twisted and skeletal, clawing at the sky. The path, if it could be called that, was treacherous, strewn with loose scree and edged by sheer drops. Yet, Gareth pressed on. He reached the foot of the peak and finally he saw it. It wasn't merely a mountain, it was a gateway, etched into the rock face, glowing with an eerie orange light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Was a colossal eye. It was feline, ancient, radiating a malevolent power that made Gareth's blood run cold. The stories were true. This was no natural formation. This was something else. A low growl echoed from the peak above, a sound that vibrated in Gareth's very bones. He knew with chilling certainty that whatever dwelt here was aware of his presence. He was trespassing. He thought of Ilara, her bright smile, her infectious laughter. He couldn't turn back. He had to know, had to try, even if it meant facing whatever horrors lurked in the darkness above. Taking a deep breath, Gareth drew his sword, the steel-cold comfort in his trembling hand. He started to climb, each handhold a prayer, each step a defiance against the dread that threatened to consume him. The mountain loomed, the eye watched, and Gareth pressed on, a lone figure ascending into the heart of the nightmare. Driven by the fierce love for a sister he refused to abandon. He didn't know what awaited him at the summit, but he knew he wouldn't stop until he found Ilara, or discovered the truth of what happened to her. He was ready to face the Devil's Peak, and whatever devil resided there. His journey had just begun.